Okay, so the question is, can you build a business using Facebook groups and an ATM method? The answer is absolutely yes. In fact, you're going to hear from somebody who's built a group of over 53,000 people in a very short period of time, and we're going to get into something really good when it comes to onboarding. In fact, she was hired by a top leader to onboard people or to create their onboarding system, and then she decided I had to go do this deal. So we're going to hear from her in just a second. That's what we're doing in today's episode. Hey, what's up, my fearless networking friends? Todd Falcone here, back with another fun episode. As you've noticed the last couple months, I've been handpicking different people that are in the network marketing profession and just kind of digging in. There's like no script, there's no pre-planned nothing. We just get together and I get to pick the brains of people that are making things happen in the network marketing space. And so, yeah, you're going to see a lot more of that as well. And I've got a very special lady on with me today that I met back in right around 2017, 2018. That's been really incredibly successful in the network marketing space, and just a super cool lady. And you're gonna hear what she does. So, Brennan, Gassaway, what's up? How's it going? Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much for the invite. When you invited me, Todd, I just immediately said yes. I didn't care what it was about. I knew this was going to be an incredible podcast. And might I say, I feel like we need to do one backward, like the other way. Like we need to be picking your brain on these too. So that would be fun. So thank you for the invite.
We can.
I'm excited.
We can for sure do that.
Yeah.
So let's just kind of start at the beginning. As far as your network marketing career, like how did you first get introduced, and when? Was it a friend? Was it online? How'd you get plugged into network marketing the first time?
So it was in 2014. I had a friend that was in a cosmetics company, and she was posting online. Somebody I'd never met in person, and she's like, "Hey, you need to try this mascara. You need to try all of this stuff." So I ordered it. And I'll be honest, I was a little bit mean to her. I was like, I don't like this. And I wanted to send it back, whatever. So then she asked me to host an online party for her. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want my friends thinking I need to get free product or anything like that. But I kept watching her. And then after I told her no, I told her I didn't like her product. I'm sitting there like, hey, she just earned this trip. She just earned a promotion. And I was like, well, maybe I should check this out too. So I got started in 2014. 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago. And when I look back, I'm like, man, I had no business starting a business. I got started in cosmetics, knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about a business. I knew I wanted to build online, but I had no idea how to build an online business. But I think that's what we love about network marketing is you can pick up and start without knowing. You can learn, you can listen to people like you, Todd. You can dig in and you can do it and you can be successful. So 2014.
2014. So what were you doing? What were you doing for a living before finding network marketing?
Oh man. Okay. I hope I don't cry during this part. I should have warned you. So, so, so when I got started, I was a stay-at-home mom. I was not working. And it felt like things were totally fine in our life at the time financially, because I was comparing it to our previous, right? And our previous was that Linnea, our daughter, was born a month early. She was a preemie. A few weeks after she was born, she was in the NICU. My husband lost his job. I had been on bed rest during my pregnancy, so I hadn't had a job for months. We lost our house. We lost our car. I mean, woke up one morning, opened the living room curtains, car is gone. Car is gone. We were, and it was very humbling and humiliating because I mean, the car seat for Linnea is in the car. You know, Dustin had to get his friend to take him down to the repo lot to get the car seat because we couldn't get the car back. Can we just please have our kid's car seat? You know, we were on food stamps. And between that time and when I found network marketing, we dug ourselves out of the hole. And the hard part about that is that we had to do a lot of traveling for work. So maybe we kind of dug ourselves out of the hole. Maybe we got off of food stamps. And you know what? There's a time and a place for all of it, right? But the hard part is that we had to travel for work, which meant that 2 weeks every month. This is the part that's so hard for me and makes me so proud to be the mom I am now, to share this with other moms, to be on here 2 weeks a month. We had to leave our daughter with my mom. The only place she stayed all night. She was about 2 at the time, and we had to travel for work. And when we finally were getting out of that and got introduced to network marketing, yeah, maybe I didn't have net debt at the time. Maybe we didn't have this big car payment or credit card payments, but I will do anything that I can to make sure I never go back to the part where I had to leave Linnea when I didn't want to make sure I don't have to go back and be gone for 2 weeks a month, because just dropping her, just leaving her just is gutting. And if anybody's had their kids in daycare or had to leave them somewhere you don't want to leave them, you know it's devastating. But the guilt that I had over those 2 weeks was crushing. So when I say, oh man, I hope I don't cry at this part, I never want to go back to that. And for anybody this is one of the things, can I drop a little tip right here? Is that okay?
Yeah.
I think that so often in network marketing, we judge people. We're like, oh, they're driving a new Tahoe. They're fine. They wouldn't need money. That's probably why they do need money. Those new Tahoes are expensive. Okay.
Yeah, they are.
But when you look at my life back then, I didn't give off any air or vibe that I needed money. And maybe in the moment I didn't, but I definitely didn't want to go back to where I was.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy? I had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day. We were talking about like who raises kids. Well, I mean, honestly, for most parents could say, "Yeah, I raise my kids," but you know, once they get into, especially if they get into public school, it's a public school system that's spending way more time with your kids than you are, and then you know your situation that you're in, you know, you're bailing for 2 weeks a month. I mean, that's got to be heart-wrenching. And you know, and the cool thing about network marketing is you can, you know, when you get it going right, there's nothing better. You know, you got the check coming in, the residual income, and you can be with your kids. And I remember one time, like my oldest at the time was like, I don't know, maybe 6 or something. It was like a Tuesday or Wednesday morning, and we were in front of the house shooting baskets. And all these cars were buzzing out of the neighborhood. It was like 7:30, 8 o'clock. And he's like, Dad, where's everybody going? Because you could, you know, we were living in this neighborhood and all these cars are like zipping, you know, they're leaving their driveways. And I'm like, oh, buddy, they're going to work. He goes, oh, they don't work at home? And I was like, no, dude, most people go to a job and they leave the house for 8 or 10 hours and then they come home. And he's like, oh, I like what you do, you know. And it's just like to see a child recognize that is so, you know,
Yeah.
interesting. And I just was like, I was taken aback by that experience, and it's just such a blessing to you know, to be at home. And I'm so, you know, I mean, congratulations on all that you've accomplished. And I want to dig in on, you know, some of the things that we've talked about ahead of time briefly. It's like, and by the way, there are no pre-planned questions. She has no idea what I'm going to ask her. And by the way, I never asked, like, I've been in these interviews and they come up with these really weird questions. I'm like, dude, I don't even know how to answer that question. Like, what's your favorite color on Wednesdays when you're, I don't even know. I can't even make up a stupid question right now. So, and I don't think there's any dumb questions. So I want to just talk about, like, so you got started about 10 years ago in network marketing. I mean, did you knock it out of the chute right away? I mean, what was that initial wave of experience like for you?
So I did not knock it out of the park right away. One of the things that I remember, one of the first people said, you know, make a list of 100 people like that you went to, you know, high school with or whatever. And I was like, but I didn't go to high school, so I can't make this list of 100 people. So I went to 8th grade. I was homeschooled from kindergarten. Well, I had 1 year of public school, but through the 8th grade. So I never went to high school. I got a job when I was 15. I had a full-time job. I actually lived 2,000 miles away from my parents, my mom and my dad at the time. But I didn't knock it out of the park. And part of it was I was like, well, who do I even talk to? But I did start with people that I knew. I made a list. Okay, maybe you feel like you can't make a list of 100. Maybe you make a list of 97. But what was shocking is I found a lot more people than I thought I would. And it felt like, for that first little while, it felt like the biggest grind without results that was discouraging. It's like, man, I see all these people making money. Like, when does that happen? So what's crazy is I kept going every single day. There was not one day that I did not do. I was building primarily on social media. So whether that was posting on social media, talking to people, following up with people, there wasn't one day that I skipped. And 18 months later, our team was the top rank in that company.
Yeah. I mean, that's a much faster path. And I mean, it's interesting because I started and I didn't make money. I didn't make money my first 24 months. And there's people around me like making money, and it was they're growing teams, and I was showing up, I was working. I want to share that with the audience because it's important. Like sometimes you look at people and you're like, oh, that must have always been easy for you. I mean, I'm not the same guy I was 5 years ago, let alone 35 years ago. And you know, it's just a matter of like, okay, are you willing to make the commitment to go through those skinny times? And I mean, in your case, it didn't, I mean, if you're looking back, I mean, it was 18 months later, you're, you know, a top earner in that company. I mean, that's a very, I mean, you beat the pants off of me. I mean, it was 4 years for me before I got to my first $10,000 monthly check. So I think it's, you know, I think it's important for people to realize like, you know, this business can provide you, you know, amazing stuff, but you know, it's you got to exercise a little bit of patience, sometimes a lot of patience, because, you know, you and I both know people that have quit. You know, people quit the business every single day, and it's like, man, they're, you know, and it's sad when somebody who is capable, like you feel like, oh, this person's got the goods, they could do this, and they give it like 2 weeks, and then they're gone. I'm like, bro,
Yeah.
you know, you gave up too early.
You know what's crazy is when if somebody's listening to that and they're like, wow, you were a top earner in 18 months, that's incredible. But you know, some of the things that I experienced during that time was people got there faster than me, and I felt like I was doing something wrong. So it doesn't matter what your journey is, there's always somebody that might do it faster, they might have a higher number. And I just learned, man, I would start stalking their Facebook pages. Man, what are they doing? What are they posting about? I would message them and ask what they're doing, because if I wanted to go do the exact same thing, you know, I want to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, no doubt. So what, like if you can articulate, uh, how did you get to be in that position in 18 months? Like what was the methodology? Like what did you do day in and day out? And like, what were some of the biggest, if there were, I'm assuming, roadblocks? Like I want to get, like when I do these interviews, I want people to go, wow, I can take that and I can go apply that into my business, rather than being just super surface. You know, like, hey, I was on social media all day, and or I talk to people. I mean, that's surface, but like what did you do specifically to get to that level of success?
Yeah, I love this question. I want to share a couple of mindset things first. One of the things that I realized really quickly on, and I'm sure I heard it in a training somewhere, was there were so many things I didn't know how to do. I remember one time I was posting screenshots on Facebook, you know, where it shows all the black and all the sides and all of these things. And somebody's like, "Oh, you can crop those." And I did not know that you could crop a photo at that time. Okay. And so I remembered that anytime that I needed to know something, I could go to YouTube University, I could go to Google, and I came upon things all the time in my business that I did not know how to do. Maybe it was I didn't know how to follow up with a customer. Maybe it was that I didn't know how to make a post on social media. Maybe it was that I didn't know how to send a friend request on Facebook. So the biggest thing that I want people to hear in that is that some days it feels like there's always something coming at you. Maybe somebody
Oh
tells you,
yeah.
maybe it's discouraging. Maybe you feel like you're not getting anywhere. And I just told myself, I can always figure it out. I'm going to Google it. I'm going to look up my question. I don't have to ask 97 uplines while they're there. And that's great. And use them as a mentor, and use Todd and the Fearless Networker. Use that as a mentor to learn from. I can also go to Google and I can YouTube anything that I need to. So that was one of my mindsets, number one. The second is that I quickly learned, and this was a few months in, but I learned I had to start counting my actions, which is one of the things that your ATM group does, or your A list, your A
A team. Yeah.
I know we were talking about ATM groups earlier too. So that was one of the things I knew I had to do. Well, I have to make sure I write down all the people that I'm contacting, because I'm going to, it might be August, you know, whatever right now, but in December, if I feel like I'm going through a dry spell, it's not most likely because of what I did on December 2nd. It's probably what I did in September. It's probably what I did in August. Like, let's go all the way back. So I told myself I have to start tracking now the people I talk to, the new connections, how often I'm posting on Facebook, my follow-ups. Because if I can track it now, while it feels so boring and it feels so dry and it feels like I'm not getting any results, if I can be consistent with it now, it will pay off down the road. So that was another one of the things that was paramount to my success.
Yeah. And so how many people, like the percentage of networkers that actually track is so tiny. It's like a little tiny percentage of a percentage. And it blows my mind. Like, I'm like, dude, how do you know like whether you're really in the game or not unless you know, are tracking like what tracking your revenue producing activities? And it's like, well, what do you mean by tracking? I'm like, well, I keep a log. You know this. I keep a log of literally every single outgoing call, text, Facebook message, DM. If it's a business related reach out, I have a chronological log of that. And that way, like if even in my business as a speaker, I still I don't teach things that I don't do. Like I don't teach TikTok because I'm not even on TikTok. So you need to learn TikTok from somebody else. So it helps me hold myself accountable. And that way, like if somebody comes to you like on your team, which I'm sure we both had this happen, probably more times than we can count. Somebody comes back and they're like, well, oh, I'm just, I'm frustrated. I'm like, the business isn't really working for me. I'm like, okay, cool. So what have you done lately? Like, what do you mean? I'm like, how many reach outs have you done in the last 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? And the funny thing that they come back with, like almost every single time, this is like, I've done this enough times where they come back and like, well, not enough. I'm like, so you're mad at the lack of the results from the work that you never did. So you already know that you're just not doing it. So how you don't have the right to be discouraged. Like I had the right to be discouraged because I was 2 years in and I was grinding and I was talking to people every single day and I had zero to show for it financially. So you don't even have the right to be discouraged. So the fact that you figured that out so early on, I think is a beautiful thing because it's great record keeping too. And you need to be keeping great records in business. Like I love the fact that I've got years and years and years of like these logs that I've been audited a few times, which is never fun. Like if they want to say, I want to see that you're actually, making effort in this business, the IRS could come to you if you're like not very profitable and say, well, we want to know whether are you actually doing anything? I'm like, dude, here you go. Here's the log every single, oh, okay. Well, you legitimately deserve those write-offs because obviously you're making an effort. So, I think for the listeners, like, are you tracking? Are you tracking and it's not the result, the result will come through the activity. And one other thing, I'll just say this, like if you're in a business for 2 years, I could go back and go, oh, wait, have I talked to Brennan about my business? I might think in my mind that I have like social media, for example. I've had, and I'm sure you have as well, like relationships with people on social where you've engaged so much on social that it feels like you've met in person, but in all reality, you haven't met in person. I've done that in 2 separate occasions. I'm like, yeah, we've met. He's like, bro, we've never met. This is the first time I've ever gone to a single event. I'm like, no, we've met before because I'm telling you right now, we've never met. That's like, how real social media sometimes makes it. And it's just crazy. So what a great thing for you to figure out so early. So like what, and I know you've done, are you like, what percentage of your business in that first 18 months was done online versus picking up the phone or engaging people in conversations?
I will answer that, but I have a little sub note for everybody. Mine was 99.9% online. I
Wow.
was a mom at home, very interested in building my business online. Also, very, very, very scared to talk to people in person. So I had both things that were there. So when I look back at it, man, if I would have had somebody say, you should still, I understand you feel like you don't have many in-person friends, but you might have 3, you might have 1, you can go talk to them, or you can pick up the phone, or whatever it might be. I would have definitely gone that route, but I was stuck on the social media part. When you think back to it though, that just would have been smart business to be doing both. And I know that you teach a lot of really cool methods for those things as well. And we've talked a lot about that
Yeah.
with your,
Yeah. So 99, now what about today? Are you still like, I mean, well, I already kind of know the answer to that question. I mean, you just built a massive ATM group with what, like 50,000 plus people in it and we're not going to go necessarily into sales volume that's been created, but just so you guys know, she's crushing it in terms of like monthly sales volume. Let's fast forward actually. Let's just kind of screw around a little bit. Like, so you're obviously in a different company now than you were when you first got started. The company you're currently in, if I recall correctly, didn't they bring you in from like a consultancy? Like you were consulting for the company or something like that, and
not
you
the
weren't coming.
company. not the company, a top leader had me come in and build their ATM group. So we're at over 54,000 members in this ATM group since March. So
wow,
what is that, 6 months, 5 months? It is a monster. The group is a beast for sure.
That's obviously, and obviously it's working. I mean, people, just so you, again, and I've had some other interviews where we've talked a little bit about ATM. Ad tag message is what it stands for, just in case. I don't want to assume somebody's like, what's ATM? We're talking about going and pulling money out of a bank. No, I mean, yes, but indirectly, right? ATM is ad tag message. So can you, well, let me go back again. So we're like, again, when I do these interviews, there's no like A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, we'll go forwards, we'll go backwards, we'll do whatever. So were you ATMing in the previous organization? Was that the methodology back then?
Yes, and it was very successful. So I knew that was one of the first things that we needed to do, because you're going to have a large customer base versus, over distributors. But we have an ATM group for customers. We also have one for distributors, but started building the customer one first of all, and it is incredible and great. And I have lots of tips about that if you're interested in a few things that with it. Yeah.
I full on want to know, like, how do you create a successful ATM group? Like, how do you build it so big so quickly? What does it take? I mean, I can guarantee you there's a ton of people that will watch this. They're like, I don't have a freaking clue. I don't even know what an ATM group is, let alone, how to actually create one. And what does that actually mean? Like, what do you do in an ATM group? So yeah, let's go for it.
So a lot of times when people think about creating a Facebook group for their business, one of the first things they think about is, okay, I'm going to post something and I'm going to post my link so people can go and purchase. But an ATM group is really built from the community, which is the customers, the other distributors, all sharing and adding value and building a community around it all. So definitely built it out with a lot of key factors as far as what was in the guides. For example, if anybody's wanting specifics, there's specifically a guide for how to use every single product. There's specifically a guide that breaks down every single product. And for anybody that's listening, that your guide, what is that? It's just a feature inside of Facebook groups that you can use to organize and catalog information. So we definitely have strategic things like that. But some of the things that got the group growing so fast is, one, there's a welcome post in the group. And whenever somebody's added to the group, you want to tag them in that welcome post. The welcome post includes a quick little, hey, here's what the group is. We are so excited that you're here. We have these products that do X, Y, and Z, and please enter our giveaway below. So there's always an ongoing giveaway on this welcome post. That's very, very key. But from there, when we started this group, I mean, at some point, the group was literally me and my husband, Dustin, because you needed somebody else in the group to start it. So it's like, hey, when we get these other people in here, what are we going to do? I was working the phone lines. If somebody messaged me and said, hey, I drank so-and-so and I loved it, that was great, I'd be like, can you please go post that in the ATM group? So for a couple months, I was driving home every single day, posted in the group. Would you share that in the group? Hey, by the way, I love that picture you took. Would you, of your product, would you go post that in the group? And so, and also another thing that we did, not just getting people to share, but it was, hey, look, I need you to go add 5 people to the group, do your ATM. And we did that religiously. People probably got so tired of hearing me talk about that on Zooms and calls and lives and in chats, but just drilled it home over and over and over. So now people know what it is that we do. We're going to be ATMing. We're going to be adding people to this group. But when you first get it started, it feels like a painful, slow process. We didn't just create a group and suddenly people just started joining. There was power and energy behind the scenes, driving the content, driving people being added to it, all of it, which was very key.
And it's kind of crazy because like for a group like that to work, you got to get buy-in. So for, at the beginning, it was you and Dustin. So like, what do you do? Like you already kind of shared, like, one way is, hey, oh, I got this result. Well, will you go post that in the group or go share that in the group? Like that, in my mind, and I've never run an ATM group myself. I mean, honestly, most of my building was I don't want to say pre-internet, but pre-social media. I mean, the phone has always made me more money than anything else, even though I'm pretty heavily engaged on social media. But like, what do you do to get people to, I'm assuming that in order for that group to work really, really well, and for you to get exponential growth and results in that group, it can't just be 2 people in there. First of all, it would be exhausting. So what do you do to get people to be active in that group other than just ad tagging and messaging, where they're actively sharing and getting in there? Is there specific things that you do to make sure that these new reps that are in there that are trying to grow their business, even if they're brand new and they don't know what the heck they're doing, that they are somehow adding value and contribution to that group?
There's a couple different things that we did. One is created a calendar with, here's the topic for this day. I need a couple people to grab some days. But once there's enough different people adding value, once there's enough different stories, once there's enough different names, other people just start thinking, well, this is what you do. You share in the group. So once we had created that enough, and when I say I was driving it behind the scenes, I was driving it behind the scenes. People would maybe look at the group and be like, well, there's this person posted and this person posted and this person posted and this person posted. Yeah, because I created it that way. Because one of the things that I knew I did not want is for somebody to go to the group and there would be a post from Brennan Gassaway and another one from Brennan Gassaway and Brennan Gassaway and Brennan Gassaway. It needed to be the community. And one of the ways that we really got buy-in from brand partners is I went to other brand partners that were having success in the group, because I already told them it worked. I already told them this is one of the things that I did that built my first 6 figures. I already told everybody, but I wanted to make sure that there was other people with success stories around the ATM groups as well. So I also went to distributors in our organization. And one in particular, I said, hey, will you go through all your customers? Like, I hate to make you do this paperwork, but will you pull up your customers and will you go see how many are in that ATM group? Because your sales are outrageous right now. I want to know the percent that are in there. Do you want to know their percent? Every single one of them. Now, I wasn't expecting 100%. That doesn't leave any room for error. So that was crazy. But then I had her go share her story. Hey, here's some of my sales. One of the things that I know contributes to it is adding people to the ATM group. So we reinforced it over and over and over. An amount where you feel annoying because you keep talking about it, you know?
Yeah.
And it works.
So you made it, I mean, literally made it happen. Like behind the scenes, it wouldn't, in other words, it's not going to organically just happen. You don't just go start a group and, ad tag and message people if you're starting fresh and the group's going to explode. You were, again, I want people to understand, like, you're behind the scenes. Forcing is probably not the right word, but we could use that, even though it's probably not the right word, but you're facilitating the growth of that group. And then at some point, what have you found, if there is one, is there a tipping point where you don't have to do the push so much? Is it 500 people, 1,000 people? Like, what have you found, if there is one? Is there a tipping point where all of a sudden it's just like, okay, this is happening really kind of on its own?
2 months in, for sure, it felt like I did not have to have near as many conversations about it. But because I believe that in business you have to track everything, I still have a Google sheet where every single day the amount of members in the group is logged in this Google sheet. And that way we can see if we really start dipping below our normal or whatever our average is for new members, we need to go have another conversation about it. So at this point now, it's just a metric that I use to have a discussion when it's needed. But the group is driving itself at this point. And we have a weekly onboarding call that I lead. And one of the things that I tell them is, I can't add somebody to that group fast enough. My fingers are on fire adding somebody to that group because I know how powerful it is. But it is very much growing now without me pushing it. But it definitely took that from the beginning.
So why is an ATM group so powerful? What's the purpose of it? For, again, I don't want to make any assumptions. So somebody who's never done an ATM group, like, why do an ATM group? Is like, what's the underlying reason for doing it? And what do you get as a result of running a successful ATM group?
Yeah, I love this question. An ATM group, ours is about product. This is the one that we're talking about. And it is full of a community of people that are using the products, loving the products, sharing their results, and sharing their stories. So if I am adding someone to the group that maybe doesn't know a lot about my products, they get in this group, all of a sudden they see there's, in our case, 54,000 people in it. But even when there's 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 10,000 people, they get in this group and they immediately are like, wait a second. there's 5,000 people in here. This must be a movement. What is going on? But then they also don't just hear Brennan Gassaway say this is great. They don't just hear my story. They're hearing from, and we are declining. We have to decline so many posts now because there's so many people that are wanting to post and share, but they're hearing from just tons of people. Hey, I mixed my product this way. Hey, I used it here. Hey, here's a win, whatever it might be. And it is a very good conversion tool. I would think of it like a third-party tool. It is our best conversion tool that we have, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's genius is what it is when you think about it. You're creating this community of social validation, and you know, and the key, I mean, it reminds me of, to some extent, where I'll say back in the day, you know, we used to run live opportunity calls. This is like pre-internet. So it would be on a conference call. And when let's say the conference call started at 6 p.m. at about, you know, I would typically get in there about 8 minutes before the top of the hour. And the conference call service that we had at the time there would be a beep every time somebody joined. You hear this beep, beep, beep. And you'd hear the beeps coming in, beep, 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 beep. And so, taking it, hey, as you're joining the call, Todd Falcone, give us your name, tell us where you're dialing in from, Rhonda in Alabama. Hey, welcome to the call, blah, blah, blah. And before even, if you're a guest and you're coming into this opportunity presentation that somebody asked you to come into, before we even start, they're like, oh my God, like what is going on here? There's like 1,000 people from all over the place. It's like pandemonium. And they're like, there must be something good here. So that's the important part I want people to understand is like, if you're going to run something like this, whether it's a live opportunity presentation, or if you're running like an ATM group, it's the power of the masses of people that are driving it. Like it's one thing, like you mentioned already, if it's just Brennan, it's like, oh, there's one lady in here, like just doing her thing. It's like, oh, and there's 11 people in here. And you might start with 11 people or 3 people, but once you get that momentum, that's where the success really happens. Is like, now it's you go in there and you're like, wait, there's 53,000, 54,000 people in this group. I mean, they're already sold before they even hear a story. They're like, there's something big happening here. So
absolutely,
it's definitely worth getting that momentum going. And you might have to, it's like I'm sure it felt like pushing a boulder, at least for the first month, until some degree of momentum took over.
Yeah, for sure. And just like in business, we set goals for how many customers we want for the month, for how many reach outs we're going to do, whatever it might be. But we also had goals set for the group. Well, how many members do we want to have in there? And I knew the average that we needed to be growing every day. And if we weren't growing at that average, I knew I had to go do something else. Talk to another distributor about why it's so important to add people. Put out another 5-minute task in the team group. I knew I had to do something else. So I also used that metric to help grow it.
How does somebody, like, if you're teaching me, okay, I'm brand new to network marketing, never done it before, and how do you invite me? Or like, I'm not even in yet, and you're like reaching out to me. What does an invite look like from your side if you're going to put me in this group?
So we actually have a team board, and in the board, there's a folder with our group name on it, and we have scripts in it that they can use to invite people to the group. Do you want me to read?
So you just, yeah, I mean, give me an example of what one might be.
Yeah, I'll read one. Oh, it's on my other phone. 1 second. I'll actually read one. And one of the things that, do you use boards? Have you used boards?
Yeah, I use boards. Yeah.
All right. So let me read one. And this is also part of our onboarding. Right away, we're telling you why it's so important to be getting people into the daily sit, why it's so important to be able to, get people into the customer groups, for sure. Okay, here's one. Also, we do all of our scripts with places to customize with someone's story. So for this one, hey, Todd, you may have seen on my page, I've been using something new for blank, blank, blank. I've been using it for how long? And here's the results I've already noticed. I can't wait to keep using it because I'm excited to experience XYZ. Anyways, I don't know if you're looking for any of those benefits, but if you are, I'd love to send you more info about what the products do. I also sent you a link to our customer group so that you can peek around. Send me a heart if you need more information. It's just an example of one of them.
Cool, cool. So just simple, straightforward invite. You're sharing your results, your excitement, your enthusiasm, and you're doing pretty soft invite. That's like a low pressure, no pressure invite. Let me ask you something before it slips my mind. Like, 10 years ago, you were doing ATM, and we can all, I'm sure, agree that whatever social media platform you're on, let's say Facebook, for example, Facebook isn't the same today as it was 10 years ago in terms of your reach. You could be the most, most interesting person in the world, and we don't reach as many people as we did 10, 15 years ago. So have you found, well, you got 54,000 some odd people in the group, so obviously stuff is working. Has it been more difficult this time around? Because you've done it before. You did 10 years ago, you're doing it now.
So the first one
difficult is it today versus
6 years
10 years ago?
Actually, this one was a lot simpler because I'd already done it once. So I knew things that I wanted to change or things that I wanted to edit or whatever it might be. Now, we do have a lot of people that grow on other platforms or in person, right? So maybe they're on Instagram or maybe they're on TikTok, and you can only do so much to get them on an additional platform. But of course, let them know about the group. Hey, are you on Facebook? And be able to add them to the group for sure.
And is your focus mostly on Facebook? It sounds like it is. There's obviously other platforms, whether it's Twitter, X, LinkedIn, and so on. But the driving force is this ATM Facebook group, not outside of it.
Yes. And I found that most people are on Facebook. Like a lot of our network is on Facebook. And so we are using that. Why not start with where the best resources are, where your warm market is? I've built on TikTok. I have a large following on TikTok. I also built on Instagram, but Facebook is my favorite for the communities. So anytime I can get somebody over there, whatever it might be, I absolutely am, because that community is just, it's huge. Will you get them all to go from TikTok to Facebook? No, that's completely two different audiences. But when I can, I do.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
It's powerful.
So let's talk about onboarding. Like, you were hired basically to create an onboarding system, an onboarding process. What do you feel are the important elements at this is such an interesting part of the conversation, because I meet so many people and I'm like, okay, so how would you get me started? And they're like, I don't know, sign you up and get you some products. And I'm like, well, what happens after that? What's the process of me? Let's say I come in as a brand partner. So we're talking about onboarding brand partners. So what do you do with me? Like, what's step 1, step 2, step 3? I don't want you to necessarily unveil, your secret sauce. If you have a secret sauce, you're like, oh, that's exclusive to our group. But so people can take information here and be able to go, oh, well, these are missing. We don't do that. We don't have that. What are the things that you do in onboarding a new brand partner?
There's a few key things that I have found are really important, and there are a lot of different ways to it. I think that it's more important to have something than to just try to make it perfect. Like, just have something and perfect it as you go, right? So what we have gotten to and has worked for me is ours is set up to be completed within your first 24 hours of getting started. And it is very simple, very broken down into simple little steps. Because, when someone gets started, they need to be able to have a win. They need to have some confidence. They probably pressed that enroll button. Maybe their fingers were shaking a little bit. Or maybe they're like, man, I can't believe I spent my $49 on that, or my $599 on that. Man, they're wondering, can I do this? So I want to get them wins as fast as I can in that first 24 hours. Is it ideal that they get a customer or a distributor in that 24 hours? Absolutely. But there's other ways to help them build confidence too, such as, what's the first post look like for their page? So we actually give them examples of what a post might look like. How can they add people to the ATM group? We actually tell them, make a list of 5 people. Here's wording you're going to message them, and here's how you're going to add them. So it's broken down into very simple steps, and it also has a workbook. They just can print this little workbook, which workbook sounds so big. It is not. It is very simple, very, very small. They can print the little workbook and they can just mark things off as they go. And what we found is that a lot of people, one, are getting through it. They're actually completing it, but they got through it and they learned these steps. I think there's a lot of controversy around this, but when you get started, from what I have found, you don't have to understand the whole back office to be able to enroll a customer or talk to somebody about how excited you are about your hair care, your skin care, your products. You don't have to understand all of, I mean, you don't even have to understand the whole compensation plan when you get started. The basis is that you know when you're doing these activities, you're enrolling a customer, you're enrolling a brand partner, it's linked to the compensation plan. And so we just want to help them get started with simple, basic steps that are small, make them feel like that they are actually accomplishing something, because they are. And then at the end of it, they get a certificate made with their name on it that they completed their onboarding, training, and they feel really good and accomplished. And it taught them how to post on their page. It taught them how to add people to the group. Yes, there's more steps, but I mean, if people would just do those two things consistently, they would start seeing results.
I think it's so cool that you provide recognition for somebody who just went through the onboarding process. Like they're already, and people like live to be recognized. Humans want to be wanted, needed, valued, and appreciated. And they haven't even really, I mean, maybe they took a couple action steps towards building their business, but they just went through an onboarding process, and you're creating this certificate that congratulates them for going through the onboarding process. I mean, that's brilliant. That keeps people moving forward. I don't know anybody, honestly, that I can think of that recognizes somebody just for going through the onboarding. Maybe when they get their first customer or they do their first couple reach outs, but to recognize someone that early on is epic. That's awesome.
And then we take it one step further too, is multiple times a week, all the onboarding certificates are put in one post and posted in the Facebook group. Hey, congratulations. These are all the people that did their onboarding. By the way, if you don't see your certificate here, you can go right here and start your onboarding training. Help me congratulate everybody below. So multiple times a week, we're celebrating people, but also reinforcing, go start your onboarding training.
So did you do the recognition like that, like in your first ATM group? Like going through the onboarding process, was that in existence, or did you kind of figure that out later?
Yes, it was. I've done that for years, actually. Yeah. And I love it because they're feeling good about what they accomplished. And it makes you feel like, what? Let me go do it again.
Yeah, it's like you're rewarding, positive, it's positive reinforcement. And I mean, for you guys listening or watching this, I mean, you need to hear that. Do you have, I mean, I would say a general question, do you have a recognition plan? Like so often people get recognized for hitting diamond or silver or presidential or whatever it's called in their company, which is cool. But like somebody goes out and they put their first, even if they haven't made a sale, for example, they ad tag and message somebody and they get like a attaboy, attagirl or something, any kind of like positive reinforcement, even if they haven't gotten a result. So recognizing effort, because I mean, we call it effort going through, your onboarding process. And so do you literally have like a checklist where they check the stuff off that they've accomplished as they're going through it?
Yeah, there's a workbook. Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. And how many, I'm just curious, like how many pages, what's the total? If I printed out that PDF, how many pages is that?
It is 10 pages, but it is very much fill in and that includes the cover photo and how to do the onboarding. So the 10 pages sounds like a lot, but it's not, because one of the pages is just giving you examples for what to post on your social media. One of the pages is just giving you scripts. So that makes it sound like there's so many steps, and I don't want the audience listening to think, oh wow, I need to create a 10-page workbook that's, 9 font and a gazillion steps. It's not. I want to stress it is very simple steps. There are 10 steps total on this whole thing, but it gets them doing the basic things that they need to do in their business, including one of them is setting their business goals.
Yeah. So I coached a woman who I met years ago that had a 102-page onboarding document. And she was like, she hired me to coach her because she made 2.7 million her first 24 months in her business, which is insane. And she's like, I need you to coach me. I'm like, I don't think you need me to coach you. It sounds like you're doing better than I ever did my first 24 months by 2.4 million or 2.7, whatever it was. And she's like, no, I'm stalling. And what we actually discovered, like she really complicated the She went from like a 2-page PDF to like 102 pages, which, I mean, I looked at it and like, I don't know if you do this, but like if you're under a lot of pressure, like there's this amazing amount of like physiologically, your body has a response. And I was like, I could feel like the sweat like coming up on my brow as a result of just like reading, like overwhelmed and reading her document. So 10 pages honestly doesn't sound, if it was like, micro font and it was all a bunch of text and I had to read. I've like purchased books. I'm like, I can't, even with glasses on, man, I can't even read that book because it's like this teeny tiny. I don't even know what the smallest font is on Microsoft Word, like 6 or 4, and it's like you need like a microscope or something to read it. But it sounds to me like you've got scripts, you got goals, you've got examples of posts, and so it sounds simple to me. I don't think 10 pages sounds like a lot. So
it is simple. And when it's made for anybody that's thinking about making something like this, might I suggest, I know when you make something, you feel absolutely so proud of it and you feel like it's the best thing ever, but I promise there are typos. I promise you've stared at it so long that you forgot an important piece you wanted to add to it. Just have somebody look over it, even if it's frustrating hearing you mess something up, Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah, sure. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I think it's interesting. Like, I mean, I've written books and documents and lead magnets and things like that. And when your head is on it, like I can read the whole thing and okay, it looks good. And then I see that it's 2 words together that shouldn't be there. I'm like, I didn't even catch that. So I don't know. Proofreading, I think, is great because I don't know. I would not join a company because there was a typo, but I think we want to strive for perfection because some people will go. I've seen corporate websites where there's like multiple typos, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
makes you do a double take, right? So
I think for you and I, it would be less about the typos and more about. Go ahead.
More about like missing one of the key steps. Like, oh, I totally forgot that one. Oh, that's yeah. So like what you're building, let me ask you this question. Do you provide an avenue through your organization where if I'm not at all on social media, that I can still succeed with the company? Is there like, okay, realizing that sure, most people are going to be on Facebook, but you got people that are on Facebook once every, I got friends of mine that are on there, but they never post. They're never on there. They got 212 friends. Is there a pathway that you provide for people where they can still succeed in the company, even if they're not big on social?
Yes. And since that is not my specialty, it is a process, a steps for a sip and sample that is put together by one of the gals that is the best at them. So it's actually a little PDF printout and here's how you can do it and all of these things. Like here's how you can invite people. It's really incredible actually, but I'm glad that she made it because that is not my specialty area.
Yeah, I mean, do what you're best at and focus. I mean, obviously like it's interesting because I have never really built on social media. Not that I've done a lot of business on social media, but to say I've built a huge downline organization on social media, the answer is no. Could I? Sure. I mean, I just, I'm focused on what I'm focused on training wise, but I think that's a beautiful thing because, if you got people that are just, I mean, I don't know, but for me personally, and this is just me, I got a love-hate relationship specifically with Facebook. It's like, it's cool. I love it. I'm on it because of business. And that's fine. That's where I'd be like, I'm cool. But if I could just disappear personally and not have to be on Facebook and entertaining my audience, sorry guys. I mean, I would post probably less frequently than I currently do, but oh, here's another thing. What do you do for somebody who's on Facebook? Okay, this would be an interesting question because there's a lot of people that, as networkers, as business people, we're on there all the time. We're consistently engaging with our audience. We're consistently posting content. If you're doing business and you're using social media, you already know that's the game and you got to play that game. But like, what do you do if you have somebody that comes in, they're like, yeah, I got a Facebook page, but I'm not really super active on it. Do you teach people how to like kind of I guess, move up a little bit through Facebook. So they're, teach it, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I've posted like family pictures and that's it. And most of my friends are literally just family and relatives and, real friends. And I've never really expanded. Do you provide people a pathway to increase their audience so that they have a larger reach with, doing your ATM system?
Yeah, and there's a couple key things that I want to share. One is we have a social media training for them to go through. So, hey, change your banner photo. Hey, change your bio. Just simple little things that are actionable. One of my favorite things to do, especially after people have gone through that helps people learn and see, is I will pick up my phone, especially if somebody comes to me and says, "Oh, nothing's happening on my social media." I'm like, hey, do you care if I do like a little audit of your page, which is such a harsh word. We're not the IRS, but I will pick up my phone, screen record, go to their Facebook, and I will find a couple things for them to change. And I will also find a couple things for them to continue doing. And sometimes I've done so many of these, sometimes it's less than 2 minutes long screen recording. I then ask if they care if I share it with the group, and I'll put it in the team group as well. So, or in a chat or whatever it might be, so that we have a lot of these. But my goal is like, hey, let's go to your page. Like, you know what? We need to be seeing more photos of you, or hey, I wouldn't be posting your link here, or whatever it might be. But I really am very intentional about also finding things that are working for them so they can continue doing them. And between those two things, it's very powerful, because a lot of people do come to network marketing. If you've not been in network marketing, you probably don't have much going on in your social media, or you feel like, hey, I'm going to post every day about my products, a picture from the corporate site that's all, corporate-y, and I'm just going to post my link and people will buy. And that's not how it works.
No, I mean, I love it. You cover the bases. Like the house that I live in, when you get done, I forget what it's called, the inspection or whatever. I'm gonna blank right now, but in order for us to close the deal, here's the things that need to be fixed or whatever. So I hired this handyman, and after we got done, I look at his Facebook page, and the image on his Facebook page was him. I'm dead serious. Him in an orange jumpsuit. And that means that's his prison or his jail photograph. And I was like, bro, dude, what do you think guys like me do when we hire people like you? He's like, what do you mean? First thing I did is Googled you, and I found out that you had a conviction of something. I still hired you because you were, I realized people make mistakes, but dude, your Facebook page is literally you in an orange jumpsuit. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, that's your profile image. And he's like, I don't even know how to change it. I'm like, give me your phone. And I literally like got in my yard, took a nice picture of him with him smiling, changed it. He's like, thanks, man. And like he was so not using Facebook that I don't even know how that image got there, but he didn't know how to change it, which is it's crazy, man.
That's so awesome. I think there's two sides of it from what I've seen when people grow on social media. There's that, hey, I'm here in my prison jumpsuit, or everything has to be so perfect before I can ever do anything to build my business. Or maybe they're comparing to the other ladies on Instagram or whatever it might be, and all the photos are perfect and everything's edited. People are here to see the real you, to hear your story. They want to see how it's helping you, your kids, your family, your husband, your mom, and there needs to be that right in the middle.
Yeah. And the fact that you're sharing that tells me that you include that. Like, I feel like you cover all the bases. Like, so I'm not left there guessing. And that's the thing about onboarding is you've got to keep it simple enough for people where it doesn't become or feel like it's overwhelmed, but comprehensive enough where I know what to do. I'm not like sitting there with a bunch of questions. And like what you said earlier, going back, like, honestly, like YouTube and Google are your friends. Like, if you don't know, then you go, I mean, they're the greatest, educational search tools you could ever imagine. Like, and if I need to learn how to do something, I'm going to YouTube. If I need to know where to find something or I need an answer, I'm going to Google. And so I just feel like there's a lot of people that will sit back and not know and not ask. Yeah. And like, that's not you, clearly, because you're like, I don't know how to do this. Like, you can edit I didn't know you could edit a screenshot. Okay, well, how to edit a screenshot? And then bang, there's like a YouTube video that shows you how to edit a screenshot, even if you don't have like expensive software. Oh, boom, there you go. It's right there in front of you. So
yes.
Yeah, man. I mean, I would love to go with you for another like 2 hours and dig, but I know you've got a busy schedule. So first of all, I want to say thank you for just hopping on here with me and sharing with the audience. For you guys that are watching, listening, some of you might be catching this on the audio version of this as a podcast. Like, I want you to really think about, like, okay, first of all, am I utilizing social media to the very best of my abilities? Should I consider doing an ATM group as part of our methodology? And I think real quickly on that, like, one of the beautiful things, like, because we have like 3-letter agencies, like, FTC and so on, FDA, little things that, those 3-letter agencies. And specifically in regard to network marketing, one of the cool things I think personally about ATM groups is because they're so product driven. Now, I know people have ATM opportunity groups as well, business groups, and you may have one of those as well. But the beautiful thing about that is those, like the Federal Trade Commission in particular, they'll be like, oh, okay, well, these guys are obviously focused on end user consumption, which is really what network marketing is all about. It's a business model for end user consumption. So having an ATM group will very likely increase the ratio of customers to distributors, reps, brand partners, whatever they're called in your particular company. So if you're not doing an ATM group, would be worthy of considering, if not doing. And then secondly, I would consider looking at your onboarding process. Do you have an onboarding process? And what does that entail? So any last final words of wisdom for my audience that, again, hungry networkers that are here to learn and figure this game out?
One of the things that served me so well in this industry is just start. You might not have all of the perfect wording. You might not have the perfect photo. You might not know exactly the right thing to say, but just go do something. Sometimes we're like, man, I don't know who to talk to. Well, what would happen if you just picked up your phone and you started looking through it? What would happen if you just saw who was in your text messages, in your Facebook messages, and you just said something? It didn't have to be perfect. Just do something. And that served me really well and helped me get out of that, oh, I don't know the right thing to say. Oh, it's not perfect. I might scare somebody away. Use the resources that are there. By all means, if there's a script template for you to customize and fill in, absolutely use that. But just do something. We had this task on Friday for Follow-Up Friday, and I gave them some ideas of people to follow up with, as well as some example wording that they could use. I said, I want you to set your timer and see how many people you can follow up with in 5 minutes. Some people were 5 people, some were 7, some were 3. That wasn't really the point. The point was just a minute. A lot of times we feel like following up with 5 people is like, day's over, I did awesome. But and it is great, you should celebrate it. But also it was 5 minutes of work. So when you look at it that way, you also have to realize, well, what would happen if you put in 10 minutes of work? Where would your business be? What would happen if you did an hour, depending on what your goals are? So my advice would just be continue listening to Todd's podcast, listen to Todd's things. This was an honor, Todd. Thank you for having me on here, because this is something I have loved being able to learn from you. I've loved taking your A team. I've loved being able to meet you in person. And I will tell you, you are, out of all of the speakers in the industry and the 6-figure earners and the 7-figure earners, you're the one that has ever consistently kept in contact with me over anybody. And I'm sure you can think of some of the same names I'm thinking of. So that just goes to show your follow-up process. But not just follow-up, you actually build true connections. I mean, we talk about Carla, we talk about the fishing, we talk about, you actually build true connections. And I really appreciate that. And I've learned from it. And I love it.
Well, I will graciously accept that compliment. I've worked hard to be a connector and somebody that, continues to stay in contact with people, even when I'm not doing business with them. And it's been probably for me one of the most successful business habits. I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine this morning, like literally first conversation this morning. This is a guy I've known for, I don't know, I think probably close to 30 years. And we haven't done business together for like 28 years. And we may never do business together, but he and I like reach out, and it's not just surface, like, hey, what's up? Blah, blah, okay, later. Like, we had a 50-minute conversation this morning, and we do that probably every 3 or 4 months. He's a real, he and I are both just deeply knowledgeable on what's going on in the network marketing space. So it's kind of like a fun conversation about who's doing what and what's happening in the space. And And it's just, we both like complimented each other this morning about how cool is that? Like, we're two dudes that have really never done much business together since like 95 or something like that. Yet we maintain that connection. And I don't know, I think there's just something incredible about that. There's value in that. And I mean, you just what you said to me, like, okay, you recognized what I've done for my entire career. Is that going to make me want to do it less, or is it going to want to make me do it more? It's clearly going to want to make me, okay, what I'm doing is working, and I'm going to continue to do that. And the thing that you said, and as far as your closing answer to my question, it's like, do something. You're never going to be perfect. You aren't. I mean, I'm not perfect now. Brennan's not perfect. Nobody's ever going to be perfect, but just take the action. And when the thing that you talked about, like the Friday deal, that is so cool. Like giving somebody actionable steps with a timeline. It was funny because I did a leadership retreat, and I can't remember exactly what the exercise it was. It was like 15 minutes or something. And it was like, just send like a connection text message to as many people as you can in 15 minutes. And we had like, I think one woman, it was like 3. And it was, and we put a carrot out there. It was like, okay, the person that does the most amount of reach outs in whatever, let's call it 15 minutes. I don't recall what it was. You're going to get this crisp $100 bill. And man, I had this one girl come up to me and she's like, dude, I'm done, 87. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, you did 87 and the lowest one was 3. And the reason the lowest one was 3 is like, because I took her phone afterwards. I'm like, let me see your phone. And she had like 1,500 contacts in her phone. She was like overthinking it, right? She's like, oh, well, this person, no, this person. So she skipped through where this other person just went, and she got the $100 bill. So anyhow, I love that. I just wanted to share that. So.
That's so cool. This was fantastic. We need to do more of these because it's inspiring. I love to learn from you and hear your questions, and this was good. So thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. And congratulations. I mean, I always love staying connected with you, and I'm just so happy to see you absolutely vibing and crushing it with your business, and keep on trucking, and we will, I'm sure, be connecting again soon. So thanks again for being with me here today, Brennan.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, you guys. So that's a wrap on this week's session. I hope you took notes. And if you didn't take notes, well, you can go back and listen to it again and take some notes. And most importantly, as I always say when I end these, it's not the acquisition of the knowledge that makes the difference. It's what you do with it. So take action. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you on the next episode.